The Extraordinary Control and Public Affairs Chamber took up the Mariusz Kamiński case after the Supreme Court decided that the Labor and Social Security Chamber was not competent to make a final decision. The decisive fact in the judge's decision was the right of clemency applied by the president in the case. Yesterday, the Supreme Court's Extraordinary Control and Public Affairs Chamber made a similar decision in the case of MP Maciej Wąsik. The Supreme Court stated that the issuance of an order declaring the expiration of the MP's mandate was not possible due to the validity of the order of the President of Poland dated November 16, 2015, on the application of the law of clemency, pursuant to which there was a pardon and letting go and discontinuance of proceedings. Supreme Court Judge President of the Labor and Social Security Chamber Piotr Prusinowski disagrees with the Chamber's decisions. It was to him that Marshal of the same Szymon Hołownia directed the appeals. However, the documents were not registered by the submission office. In addition, they were addressed to another chamber of the Supreme Court. I am doing this out of concern for them, so that this case stays, so that this case is heard by a court that does not raise any doubts. In addition, the Marshal of the same wrote a letter to Labor Chamber Chairman Piotr Prusinowski to appoint, in his opinion, appropriate judges. I request that the case be entrusted to a panel of judges that will not undermine the trust that the judiciary should inspire in a democratic society and the rule of law. Members of the Law and Justice Parliamentary Club have filed a notice to the prosecutor's office about the possibility of a crime committed by the Marshal of the same and the director of his chancellery. In their view, Szymon Hołownia exceeded his authority by attempting to influence the determination of the composition of the Supreme Court. The second person in the state wanted to determine the composition of the judiciary. This is unacceptable. First President of the Supreme Court, Małgorzata Manowska, issued a statement on the actions of the Marshal of the same. In accordance with procedural regulations, the decision on the outcome of the appeals by the Supreme Court will be officially forwarded to the Marshal of the same. It is impermissible for the Marshal of the same to direct a request for an explanation from any Supreme Court president. It is worth noting that identical documents were submitted by MPs Maciej Wąsik and Mariusz Kamiński. The former Interior Minister does not rule out that the Supreme Court's decisions may be ignored. I lived through the 1980s in Poland. Then I started my activity as a young boy, a student. I was one of the activists of the underground Independent Student Association. I was detained many times by the security service. I am not afraid of anything. The provisions of the law, in terms of jurisdiction to hear the appeals of the MPs in question, Wąsik and Kamiński, should go to the Extraordinary Control Chamber, because that is what the Supreme Court law indicates. Polish President Andrzej Duda applied the right of clemency to Maciej Wąsik and Mariusz Kamiński in connection with the so-called land scandal in a decision dated November 16, 2015. Last December, a second instance district court issued a guilty verdict. The Marshal of the same terminated their mandates. As a result, the deputies appealed the decision to the Supreme Court.